So I guess let's begin. Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us in the webinar, How to Secure Cisco Routers and Switches. This is your host, Sham Hussain from Quick Start. I'm with Bekim Dauti. He is a Cisco and Microsoft and CompTIA certified instructor with over 1.5 decades of experience under his belt. And he's a founder of his own company. He's been teaching for over 15 years now, and we are very lucky to have him here with us today. That said, I would like to just hand it over to the real star of the show, Bekim. Please take it from here.
Thank you very much, Sham. Hi, everyone. Hope my voice is being heard loud and clear. As Sham basically introduced me, I'm Bekim Dauti. And just shortly, I have a master's in information technology with University of Maryland. I have bachelor's in informatics with University of Tirana in Albania. Obviously, throughout my journey in the information technology and communications, I have obtained several certifications. A few of them are presented in this particular slide. CompTIA Plus, Server Plus, Security Plus are from the CompTIA. And then I'm also Cisco Certified Academy instructor for nearly 16 years, and also a Microsoft certified trainer for this is my 11th year, basically. Currently, I work as a system administrator for the Kosovo Telecom, where I maintain or administer the SharePoint server. In addition to that, I've just founded my own company, which is in general a training center, and also providing services, and hopefully we'll be entering into the outsourcing field as well. Okay, you can reach me through my email at bekim@dauti.com. Yes, feel free, whether just greeting me or asking me, or why not enter into some sort of collaboration in some sort of a joint project, or maybe just some related activities in the information and communication technology. Or you can give me a call in my phone number. I do also use WhatsApp and the Viber as well. Okay, so let's just move ahead without not losing more time in this particular introduction over here. What are the course objectives? Okay, basically by the end of this webinar or this course, how my colleagues from the Quick Start have called in particular, you will have a clear understanding of the infrastructure of a computer network. So basically, we'll be going from some very basics concepts of a computer networks, and then looking in terms of basically what is the computer network topology, what is the computer network architecture, what are the communication protocols, and everything related to the foundations of the computer networks. Then we will take some time, and then again basically some sort of digging up basically some sort of the network security stuff as well. Okay, so looking at the network security, for instance, what is the network security, why we need network security, then looking at the inside and outside threats as well. And then obviously looking at the actors, or looking at the threats, and looking at the basically the things that are threatening and simply attacking the computer networks nowadays. Then we will go in some sort of the configuration explanations of how we secure network devices, in particular the routers. Okay, and then we will be concluding this particular webinar with monitoring and managing a secure network. In terms of the lessons, obviously this webinar is organized in 4 lessons. The very first one deals with the understanding of network infrastructure. The second one is understanding the network security, then securing network devices, and monitoring and managing network devices as well. In understanding network infrastructure, As I said earlier, we will be looking at the definition of a computer network. Simply what is a computer network? What's the purpose of a computer network? What are the components of a computer network? What are the topologies of computer network? What are the communication protocols of a computer network? And obviously then looking into some more interesting information within the lesson 1. The lesson 2, we enter into the network security. As I said earlier, we will be trying to find out what is the network security and what's the purpose of securing the computer network, and also looking at the threats, particularly threats from inside or from the outside of the computer network. Then also, as I said earlier, we will be basically taking some time and looking at particularly how we secure networking devices with the highlight of a router. Okay. By the time we start the lesson 1, we will also uncover the concept and the definition, the purpose, what is a router and why we use a router in the computer network. And then concluding the webinar with the lesson 4, which is monitoring and managing a network devices. Obviously, we have a short summary as well, which I think we'll be spending more of it in terms of Q&A. So if there are questions, obviously I will gladly answer or provide the answer. In case I don't know the answer, then I will be very, very honest and say that definitely I will search for the answer and then provide the answer to you. Okay, let's just move on. Okay, I'm sorry, I'm using the touch screen and it seems like I'm having some issues. Okay, understanding network infrastructure. We will be starting with a short presentation, which is about the human network. This presentation I've borrowed from the Cisco, and basically at the point when I was introducing myself as a Cisco certified network instructor, the majority of the information provided over here is basically from the CCNA course. In case any one of you has attended or is basically attending a CCNA course in any networking academy throughout the world, obviously the majority of the information over here is already familiar to you. Okay, in case you have not attended the courses of the Cisco Networking Academy, then obviously this is quite interesting to you, and it might be maybe like a way of dragging your attention and your interest to enroll courses within the Cisco Networking Academy, and with it become a student of a Cisco Networking Academy. Okay, let's just start playing this movie, and basically we'll then see what we have over here.
Welcome. Welcome to a brand new day. A new way of getting things done. Welcome to a place where maps are rewritten and remote villages are included. A place where body language is business language. Where people subscribe to people, not magazines. And the team you follow now follows you. Welcome to a place where books rewrite themselves. Where you can drag and drop people wherever they want to go. And a phone doubles as a train ticket, plane ticket, or lift ticket. Welcome to a place where a wedding is captured and recaptured again and again. Where a home video is experienced everywhere at once. Where a library travels across the world. Where businesses are born. Countries are transformed. And we're more powerful together than we ever could be apart. Welcome to the Human Network.
Okay, so the video itself speaks a lot. So personally, I'm not adding nothing over here. But the idea is basically that indeed, with the computer networks, there's a huge benefit for the humankind, and obviously our generation of this time is witnessing that one. Okay, so let's just move on and see what else do we have in lesson 1. Okay, so we simply go with the question that says, what is a computer network? Okay. Over here, we're not looking at some sort of a PhD definition about a computer network. Okay, simply putting in our own words, what is a computer network? Okay, before defining a computer network, let's first look at the general term of a network in order to then simply recognize the computer network definition in particular. Okay, if you're doing a search for the word network in the Merriam-Webster dictionary, you will find the definition that simply a network. So we're not talking about the computer network, but the network. Okay, in Merriam-Webster dictionary, the definition about the network says that it's basically a group of people, organizations that are closely linked and that work with each other. Okay, and then from the same dictionary, from the same basically Merriam-Webster dictionary, then we're also having the basically something like a definition about the network of a people, the network of organization, and by looking and then analyzing all of these the definitions from the Merriam-Webster dictionary, because we're talking about the computer, so we're not talking about the people, we're not talking about the organization. Okay, if a network of a people is a group of a people, if a network of organization is a group of organizations, then from that we will be simply thinking that the computer network is a group of a connected computers that basically is constituting the computer network. Okay, this is how in a simple way I see basic and I answer always to this particular question with a definition that the computer network is a group of connected computers. Then we have what a computer network does. Why I've listed this particular questions over here. From my experience, I've basically encountered or found out that people, or I'll say that a decent number of people is basically confusing the computer network with what the computer network actually does. Okay, so in a sense, these two are two different definitions or two different concepts, and that's why I'm myself is basically highlighting over here this one. Okay, so computer network. If a computer network is a group of connected computers, then computer network shares resources. So the purpose of a computer network, or the main thing that the computer network does in the best possible way, is to share resources. And when we talk about the sharing resources, anyone who has experience with computer networks, and I guess you do have, okay, simply you have seen that it is very easily to share files, applications, printers, and other peripheral devices in a computer network. Okay, it's something that indeed it gives that enjoyment. Okay, when particularly you're simply either yourself have deployed a computer network, or maybe let's say that you're just working into your organization, and then you do have there a local area network, and then indeed by being able to communicate with your own colleagues there, sharing information, collaborating in the joint projects, indeed it gives you that satisfaction feeling every time that you're basically doing this sort of interaction within a computer network. We move then with what are the types of the computer networks. Okay, the way that the Cisco Network and Academy is basically listing are the ones that we're having over here, like small home networks. Okay, pay attention. Aside in the braces, I've added something like PAN LAN. myself is going to provide you basically information regarding that one, but just so you so simply you know what is that all about. Okay. Simple networks are basically or small home networks are the word itself is basically telling that indeed this is just a small home network. So within our homes we have these computer networks. It's not necessarily that it's going to be a wired network. Not at all. Instead, it might be a wireless network. Okay, in case you are having a access point. Okay, and then obviously with all those handheld devices or mobile devices, you're simply connecting all those devices through the wireless fidelity technology, and then you have simply set up that small home networks. Okay, and obviously this home network that has access to the internet, and the benefit for all the participants. So when I say participants, I'm saying of all of the devices that are being part or connected to this particular network, then all these devices can have access to the internet. But what is PAN and LAN? Okay. I wanted to give you some sort of the clear picture that the small home network is usually or sometimes called personal area network. Why it is called personal area network? Obviously, the name itself is providing the explanation. It is called personal area network because that particular computer network belongs to a particular person. Obviously, within homes, it might be one individual living in one particular home, or maybe a family is living. So if it belongs to one particular individual, then that is basically a personal area network. If that home computer network is belonging to a family, okay, or more than one individual, then in that case, we will be referring to that as a local area network. Okay, and then since we have simply introduced the definition or the name of the local area network, and obviously we think of a more complex computer network compared to the PAN. Okay, particularly compared to the PAN, when we refer to it as a LAN, then obviously we think about the peripheral devices over here. Maybe you might have a printer, a shared network printer there, a shared scanner, and also other peripheral devices. Okay, and that's why then we're basically moving towards the small office, home office. Okay, because nowadays basically we're witnessing that a lot of people worldwide are telecommuting, and telecommuting means that you're working from your home. Okay, so you either might be a full-time employee or a project-based employee, and then working from your home. In that case, you're having a home office. And that in that home office, you do have a local area network in this particular example. Why? Because in terms of the complexity from the devices that are participating in this particular home office network, is not that complex, this particular computer network, because it might be one or two computers, a peripheral device. Okay, but from the standpoint of the resources that you're accessing, okay, then you're using the VPN, virtual private network, which is a virtual connection to your company, to your corporate network. And just because of that, with all these technologies that are simply this particular home office is basically utilizing, then obviously we have introduced over here or referred to that as a local area network. Then obviously it is also like small office, assuming that like myself has just recently established or founded a small business or startup, better saying, okay, as it is trend nowadays. Then in that situation, within that small office, it might be just me employed for the being time, or maybe we are two colleagues. Okay, then in that situation, again, we're having a small computer network. which again we will be not referring to as a personal area network, but instead we will be referring as a local area network. It might be situations dependable upon the office, okay? But if the office is, let's say, horizontally spread in terms of the offices, so it's one office after another office and then after another, then definitely we needed to subnet this particular computer network, and then in that situation we needed to extend that local area network by introducing either routers or switches in between layer 3 switches, okay? And then extended LAN concept might take place as well. Okay, medium to large networks. Over here we're dealing with the mid-sized businesses or big companies such as known as the corporates. And in that situations, in those areas or in those workplaces, we have very complex computer networks, which basically we will be referring to it as an extended LAN, okay, or a metropolitan area network, assuming that that particular mid-size or that corporate within one particular city has basically the more than one physical presence, which is known as the office, assuming that they have a headquarters and they have some several other offices within the same city, some satellite offices at the edge of the city, and definitely in that situation by the through the utilization or through the usage of the internet, it's basically over here then takes place the metropolitan area network, because it's a network of a corporate that is covering almost all of the city, but used primarily and used solely by that company and not by the people that are living within that city. And then we have the worldwide networks, okay, or basically wide area networks that I've introduced over here. It's that because LANs are they are very speedy in terms of communication or transmitting data from one host to another host, but they have limitation in terms of coverage, okay? That's why they are called local area network, because it just covering a certain area, a local certain area. Then metropolitan area network, we've learned that it's covering a city. Then wide area network doesn't have problems with the limitations, because thanks to the technology and internet in particular, then wide area networks can connect two MANs, meaning that they can connect two cities. So one metropolitan area network in one city and another metropolitan area network in another city, and like that, basically creating that wide area network. And the best example of the wide area network is the internet itself, because the internet is like networks of networks. And the reason why internet often it is called, or whenever you're basically reading about the internet, whether in the books or from the internet itself, the information of the internet itself, then you have encountered this particular definition that the internet is the network of a network. Why? Because the internet is connecting or is interconnecting all these LANs and MANs throughout the world, and then with it is basically constituting the itself, which we refer it and know it as the internet. Okay, let's just move. Not interested to take more time of yours. Okay, proceeding with computer network topologies. Okay, so what is the topology basically? Okay, whenever we heard this notion or this name, we automatically we need to think of a how physically the devices and components of such computer network are arranged or are placed, okay? And also think of the logical stuff of that topology, meaning like the IP address, the host name, the protocol being used in order to basically enable the communication among the devices in such computer network. Okay, then. With it, basically, we have like topology is topology then is divided into two groups, which is physical topology and also like logical topology. Because when I was talking physical topology, I was saying that it is presenting the ordering, the arrangement, and the placement of the physical parts of a computer network. For instance, like computers, peripheral devices, cables, okay, because we're talking about the wired networks, okay, and also like the networking devices or network equipments as well, okay. With that, the physical topology of a computer network actually represents its physical structure, okay. That's why I was referring to it as basically the physical arrangement of all those elements or components that were just mentioned earlier. Okay, within the physical topology, we have the bus, the ring, the star, the extended star, the hierarchical, and the mesh. Okay, what is the bus physical topology? It is a topology in which computers, peripheral devices, and network devices as well are connected through a bus that is mainly consisting of a coaxial cable. Okay. But this coaxial cable, it's not, or the cable TV, as it is known mostly or widely. Okay, this is something that has been used in the past, and nowadays is more and more being replaced by the fiber optics. Okay, then we have the ring topology, in which basically in which physical topology, the computers, the peripheral, and the network devices, they create that sort of a closed circle. Okay, the way that all these physical components and devices are arranged, it is giving the impression that indeed it is a sort of a ring created, the way that they are arranged physically, so it can basically then transmit the data from one host to another host, or from one node to another node, in order basically to enable the communication within this particular physical arrangement. Okay, in the past, same here as with the bus, the coaxial cable was used a lot, but nowadays in the dual ring. Okay, in the dual ring networks, the fiber optics is being used, and the dual ring is in order to say. I will not go into the details. It's something that it was introduced by the IBM beginning of 80s. Okay. Because it is passing the information from one computer to another computer, okay? And then if one computer is not working or is not functioning, okay, then definitely it's going to break the transmission, or simply interrupt the transmission, and with it that simply there is no communication in that particular network. And then it was introduced lately, the dual ring, in order to create that backup communication line in case the first line, okay, it's not functioning, or it's not operating. Then the second one is going to take over, and then with it proceed or enable the communication within the ring. Then star is the most widely used physical topology. Even your local area network in your house is basically in star. The star employs a central device, and when I say central device, as soon as I mention the name, that you will basically have understand what I'm talking about. Is the switch, is the hub, or it is the access point back at your home that is acting as a central device, and then from that device that you have the independent connection, wired and wirelessly, that are going to the hosts on your local area network, or on your personal area network. And with it, basically, if we simply would take a blank paper and a pencil and then start drawing this particular computer network or this particular physical topology, indeed we will conclude after once we have the final drawing, that the way that the network devices, or the network device, the central network device, and the other hosts are basically connected, it is giving us the impression, or it is giving us the view of a star. Then extended star is basically a more complex physical topology compared to the star itself. It is a topology in which computers and peripheral and networking devices are connected in two or more star topology networks. Okay, so you have like two star networks, and then with a bus in between, then you're simply extending star. Okay, so you're simply extending the star topology, and this is similar to the one that I was earlier talking about, the types of computer networks, when I was saying the extended LAN, local area network, because you have like one LAN in star physical topology, you have another LAN in star physical topology with a bus in between. So like two central devices, and then a connection from the one switch to another switch, okay, or from one hub to another hub. With that is a bus, okay, and then obviously this is known as the extended star, or earlier as the extended local area network. What is the hierarchical the physical topology is a combination of a star and a bus topologies. Okay, in this topology, or this topology has a requirement because it must have at least 3 levels of the hierarchy. Okay, in which the star topology connect one or more nodes to a single main node, so that all then these nodes together basically are related to the main trunk, which is like it is creating the impression of the tree with the branches, okay, and the leaves like referring to the host. Okay, and then finally we have the mesh, and then this is the most complex and most expensive computer network. Obviously, this is not within our homes. This is not within the small businesses or mid-sized businesses. Even within the corporates, is not. But this is within the interwide corporates, so the companies that are located throughout the world or globally. Then in order to have the high availability of the resources, or the high availability of the data that the employees of those particular companies are accessing, then they are employing or deploying the mesh computer network. In mesh computer network, each location in this situation, each particular data center is connected to another data center in order to have that high availability. Okay, then we're moving with the logical topology. Okay, it is basically it is the contrary of the physical topology. Okay, because over here we're not having physical components, we're not having physical devices, and simply that logical component that is comprising the computer network. And over here we will not enter into some sort of a complex discussion. We'll be just naming the host name of the IP address. Why? Because the host name is the logical element that is identifying a certain host, and you can see from this image or this figure over here that is on the slide, that each particular computer over here has a name and the IP address. Okay, it means that the computers in this local area network can communicate. Although this is not just a LAN, this is an extended LAN, because we have like human resources LAN and management LAN. So we have 2 different computer networks, and then all that is basically being extended with another switch in between. And when I was talking earlier regarding the hierarchical physical topology, this is basically the best example of that topology. Okay, so going back to the host name and the IP addresses are two important logical elements that are used by the computers in order to communicate. So computers in a computer network, particularly in a local area network, use host names in order to talk to one another, and also they use the IP addresses in order to talk to one another. Often when you're trying to access a certain resource or certain file, better saying, in another computer, then obviously you're just entering like // and the name of that remote computer, and then if it's shared and you have basically the permissions to access that shared, then yes, you're going to access it, okay? Or either if you're not using the host name, then you're using the IP address of that remote computer. Either ways is going basically to provide you access to it if prior to that the user of that remote computer has provided you with the permissions in order to access it. Okay, moving on, computer network components. Okay, we will be naming some of the computer network components so you have a clearer picture of everything that is basically involved within the computer network. Okay, from the definition itself, what was the computer network, the types of a computer network, the physical topology. Okay, and then in order to then to some sort of more complex the concepts or definitions, which are basically providing the meaning of a computer network components. Okay, we start over here with the host. What is the host? Often when you're reading a book, a computer network book, or reading an article, on the internet, okay, or on the printed magazine, you're simply then encounter this sort of this terminology. Okay, and maybe you wonder it, or maybe you have figured it out from reading that book or that article, that what is host, what is node, what is client server, and the rest. Okay, but over here we'll be just providing shortly what is a host in a network. A host in a network is a component, and when we say component, obviously we think about the physical device, and physical device can be a computer. Physical device can be a network printer. Physical device can be a network device. Physical device can be a server. Okay, so it's simply a physical component, okay, or a physical device that has a network interface, and then on that network interface it has an IP address, and it is using that IP address in order to either access resources or share resources. So this is host. And what is the node then? The node, again, the node, similarly like host, it is referring to the physical device. But it's not referring to a physical device that can access resources or share resources. Instead, it is a physical device that is receiving the resource from some remote location, and then is passing over, transmitting that resource to some other device or other computer. So it's basically a physical device that is enabling the communication. And then straight away we can think of the hub, the switch, the bridges, okay, the modems, the access points. So all of this stuff. And pay attention, I'm not mentioning the router over here, okay? We'll find out why I did not mention the router in this definition or this concept. What is client? In most cases, it's a computer that is requesting the resources on a computer network, as opposed to the client. The server is the computer. Again, the server is a computer basically running a server operating system, okay? And then it's a computer that is providing services on a computer network. And networking devices are all the physical devices which are basically required in order to enable the communication in that particular computer network. Peripheral devices, again, we're dealing over here with physical devices that are adding the functionality to a computer or to a computer network. When I say peripheral device is adding functionality to a computer, then you can think of a mouse, you can think of a keyboard, you can think of any device, peripheral device that is being attached to your own personal computer. And then when I was saying adding functionality to a computer network, then you can think of a network printer, you can think of a network scanner, you can think of a network plotter, you can think of any other peripheral devices, network attached storage, okay? So you can have a more disks on your computer network in order to store more data, as opposed to the hard drive or to the physical or to the direct access storage that you're having on your computer or on your computers within your computer network. Okay, then we have a network operating system. what is the network operating system? Is simply a software. So the operating system is a software, and then that's what's the purpose of such software? Is the software that is capable of basically how can I say generating the services, and with it being able then to deliver those services or share those services on a computer network. When I say generating the services, just take for example like Windows 10. It's not that I'm trying to make a commercial for Microsoft. I can even mention the Linux operating system as well, the Mac operating system as well. So desktop operating systems, they are capable of file sharing. Okay, you as a user have created a file and then shared that file. Okay, so it's thanks to a network operating system. Over here, we're not talking some complex operating systems, such for instance, like Windows Server, a Linux server, or Linux for servers, or the Mac OS for servers. Simply, we're talking for the desktop operating systems that are capable of sharing files in printers. Okay, the printers or the local printers connected to the computers can be shared basically, and then with it is that by sharing those files, we've created the file, and then we were basically capable of sharing that file, and then that file being accessed by the other participants or by the other users in that computer network. Applications and shared data over here is very much related to what we've said already. So it's the applications that are jointly accessed by the users in a certain computer network, and also like files and all of the related data that comes with those applications, again accessed by the users on the same network. Okay, let's move on. Understanding the network infrastructure, we are at the sub lesson, if I can say, okay, which is like switch and router. As you can see in the images, we have simply provided some types of the Cisco switches and also like Cisco routers. Okay, let's just find out what is a switch and what is a router. Okay, if you're going to be asked what is a switch, obviously the very simplest answer that you're going to provide is that the switch is a physical component, okay, and also like it's a network, and like it's a physical device, a network device as well, or physical component and network device. This is the simplest answer that you can basically answer to questions of what is a switch. But what actually does a switch? Okay, and then what is the switch function? The switch connects the devices. Pay attention, this word connects devices, okay, to what we're going to hear when we go through the definition of a router. Okay, so the switch connects devices or computers in a computer network. Okay, how does the switch work? Switch is using the packet switching method to receive, process, and forward the data, forward the packets basically, because it's layer 2 device, it's dealing with the frames. Okay, so that the packet or the data has some other name over here, and then is the frames. So it's receiving frames, it's processing frames, and it's forwarding the frames to the destination devices. So switches are layer 2. Okay, and the OSI model, okay, which is comprised from the 7 layers, switches are operating in a layer 2. Okay, so it's a layer 2 network device that is connecting computers, okay, with other computers in that computer network, including the peripheral devices. Okay, it can be a switch in the home, it can be a switch in a company. Okay. It is a device that has multiple ports. Okay, in worst scenario, it might have 2 ports, but nowadays we're seeing the switches are usually having 8 or 16, 24, or 48. Okay, depends. Okay, and then definitely those ports are called switch ports. Okay, and then remember that physical topology, the star format. Okay, by deploying a switch in a computer network, then it is basically utilizing the star physical topology. Okay, Cisco has majority of these Cisco switches are manageable, meaning that you can manage, so you can run configuration on those switches, or better saying on a switch ports. Okay, particularly to strengthen the security. Okay, but there are also like Cisco switches that are not managed. Okay, primarily for the home offices. Okay, or for those personal area networks within our homes. Okay, if we mention the managed and unmanaged, then obviously in terms of prices they differ a lot. The unmanaged switches are much cheaper compared to the more expensive managed or configurable switches. Okay. Let's move on and see what is a router, and then basically providing some more information about the routers, particularly and the Cisco routers. Okay, same as or similarly as switches. If you're going to be asked what is a router, then again the simplest answer might be that the router, same as the switch, is like physical component and a network device. Okay, but then what is the function of a router? Okay, I was telling you to pay attention that now is that the switch was connecting computers, the router is connecting networks. Okay, you can notice the difference between the switch and the router. The switch is connecting computers, and the router is connecting networks. You might be right if you think that also the switch can connect networks. How? If we are extending the LAN, and we have already talked about the extended LAN, local area network, okay, or the extended star from the perspective of the topology or physical topology, but in order to connect networks, to different networks, okay, then you need layer 3 switches, okay, because you need to route the traffic. And in order to route the traffic, layer 3 switches are capable, because in layer 3, we don't have frames, we have the packets in the OSI model, okay? But primarily the routers are used for connecting networks, because that's the only thing that they are professionals in basically doing that particular thing. Okay. What else do we have is that how does the router work? Okay, we've seen that how we've learned how does the switches work, but now we will be learning also about how does the routers work. As compared to the switch, basically the router is forwarding packets, okay, not frames. So it's not receiving, processing, and forwarding frames, but it's receiving, processing, and then forwarding the packets to the destination network. So from one network to another network, as opposed to a switch that was receiving frame from one computer and then receiving that frame, processing that frame, and then furthermore basically forwarding that frame. With the word processing, how we can understand this one better. If we use the word processing frames, then obviously in the layer 2, in layer 2, the switches are not using IP addresses for communication, are using the media access control or the physical address, the MAC address. And that processing means that when one frame comes from the computer A, then the switch needs to ensure that if the source and the destination frame, the source and the destination MAC address that came with that frame, is that information already available in the MAC table. If it is available, then obviously it's going to be much easier for the switch to forward than to the destination computer. Same is with the router. Okay, it means that the packet that came from one particular network, and then obviously that packet has the IP source and IP destination. The router is going to basically look at the routing table and then match the destination IP address in order then to forward to the other network. Okay, let's just move on and see what else do we have over here. Okay, sorry. Okay, computer network architectures. What we have over here, when we say computer network architectures, obviously we think of a more complex design as to what we've taught so far. Okay, it's basically talking about the computer networks. Actually, we're talking about the essential and broader concepts of the elements that are making up or constituting the computer network as well. Okay, then in this form of a discussion, while the computer network types deal with the area coverage, so when we looked at the types of a computer network, we've seen that we've had like those personal area networks, local area networks, metropolitan area networks, and wide area networks. Okay, so we've created a feeling that all that basically deals with the coverage. Okay, local area network is covering a local area. Metropolitan area network is covering a city. Wide area network, it doesn't have the limitations of a LAN and the MAN, and that's why we said that is the best example of the internet. Okay, and then we went to the physical topologies, both physical and also like logical topologies, that basically we're dealing with the physical arrangement and the logical communication. Okay. Then we come to the computer network architecture, which is actually representing the computer network design that allows the computer components to communicate with one another. What we have over here, obviously computer networks recognizes more than two architectures, but particularly these are the most widely used architectures in the computer networks. It's like peer-to-peer architecture and client-server architecture. But what is peer-to-peer architecture? Okay, it says a group of computers that are linked together with equal permissions and responsibilities for processing data. But we will provide a short example over here. Assuming that on your local area network back home, you have like let's say a desktop computer and a laptop computer. Okay, so you don't have there in your environment a server, a dedicated computer that is providing services. Then, because you have like in your desktop computer, you have a printer, a local printer connected to the desktop printer, to the desktop computer, you have shared that printer. Okay, so
Bekim, so I hate to interrupt, but we only have like 10 minutes left. So if you can move on to the securing network devices part, that would be great. Yeah.
Okay, pardon. Shortly, then these computers sharing resources in between without not prior to it having some specified or determined roles, then it means that while the desktop computer is sharing resources to the laptop is becoming the client and the desktop is becoming the server. Then after some time, if the laptop is sharing some resources to the desktop computer, then the laptop is becoming a server because it's serving. It's providing services, and basically the desktop is becoming the client. Okay. In the client-server architecture, we have a dedicated computers and dedicated servers, meaning that the servers are providing the resources or sharing the resources or services, and the client are accessing those resources or accessing those services. Okay. Let's just move on. Okay, very shortly, network medium. What is the network medium? Okay, in particular, is the media that is utilized in order to transmit the information, transmit the data from one end to another end. In general, the general categorization is the metal medium, the glass medium, the air medium. Within the metal, you have the copper. Okay, the copper is being used by the twisted pair cables, by the coaxial cables in order to transmit the electrical impulses. Okay, the glass is being used by the fiber optic in order to transmit the light. Okay, and the air medium is basically the waves and the rays from the electromagnetic spectrum are using the air as the medium in order to transmit the data. Okay, let's move on. Communication protocols, I will be very short over here. Communication protocols is that right now myself is simply presenting this particular presentation, or this running this webinar in English language, and obviously the English language has its own rules. It has the letters, which is basically constituting the alphabet of the English language. It has the grammar part, the syntax part, and all of this stuff. Okay, same is like with the other human languages worldwide. In same fashion, also the computer communication languages are constituted. Okay, but obviously because they are comprised of the standards and rules, and then altogether that is known as the communication protocols. Okay, in general, there are two categorizations of the communication protocols. There are like connection-oriented protocols and connection-less protocols. Interesting in connection-oriented protocols, prior to transmitting the data, is that there is some end-to-end communication being established. Okay, so prior to sending data from computer A to computer B, the first is being established an end-to-end a logical connection, and then the data is being then transmitted. In connection-less protocols, it's a completely different approach used over here. Packets are, there is there is prior to transferring data, there is no establishment, there is no communication basically established between the end-to-end devices, but simply the packets are constituting that format of a transmission by identifying basically the packets that are containing the destination address of the receiver, and then all of that is basically then transmitted as a group. Okay, the best example of the connection-oriented protocol and the connection-less protocol is the TCP, the transmission control protocol versus user datagram protocol. Okay, both these protocols are operating in the fourth layer of the OSI. Okay, proceeding. Networking structure overviews. We will be not going over here as we basically we have already covered this one. Okay, here we are at the lesson 2, and this one is like understanding network security. Okay, so what we have in this particular lesson. Okay, first of all, what is the network security? Okay, this is a very interesting and intriguing question as well. Reason for that is because indeed all of us might have different opinions, a different approach towards what is a network security. But definitely all of us are going to agree in one particular thing, that whatever components, I'm talking computer network or computer network components we're using, the purpose or the intention is to protect the data, basically protect what is very important in that particular computer network. It is something that it is for our interest and not for the others to have some sort of unauthorized access. Okay, so we have provided in this particular slide, like from the Webster dictionary, what is the definition regarding the security as a general notion. Okay, then we went into providing some sort of from the book, like Secure Communication Network, but we will stop at what Cisco is saying regarding the network security. And obviously it says it's an activity, or any activity that is designed to protect the usability and integrity of your network and data on the network, because data is what matters most, matters most for us if that computer network belongs to us, or matters for any other institution, organizations, or company that particular network is basically serving the mission and vision to such organization or company. Okay, moving on. Let's just look what are the insider and outside threats. Okay. Obviously, first of all, what is a attack vector? Okay, it simply is representing a path or other means by which the attacker is basically gaining access to server, to host, or to the network in general within one particular computer network or one particular organization. Okay, so many attack vectors originate from the outside, and this is very interesting. Whenever the outside threat is being mentioned, think of it as a form of organized attack. Okay, so it's not coming spontaneously, but obviously, whether an individual, which is known as a hacker, or a group of people has organized that attack for some time, and then obviously now is basically just implementing in order to manage to access in an unauthorized format or way the resources within the corporate or the organization or the organization's network. Okay. So in general, think of the outside threat as the organized way of attack, of basically cyber criminal attack. Okay, while when we think about the insider threat, then the insider threat is very interesting. Okay, from the reports lately, we're basically seeing that those security reports from the internet are telling us that the number of the insider threats is increasing more and more. Why? Because you have like those intentionally insider threats, and then unintentional in the basically insider threats. Intentionally, it might be that an employee is basically acting as a double agent. When I say double agent, think of a company that invents thing, okay, has very important data within own computer network, okay, and it might be that a particular employee was lured from the, let's say, from the money that was given from some other company, and then obviously she is stealing the data from with legitimately, because she has access. It is authorized to have access in own computer corporate network, and then she is then giving away that data to some other company, and then this is then just creating that rivalry or competition, unfair competition basically in between companies. Okay, another thing might be that unintentionally, while the employee is working some sort of a project, or say like in a network application, she might run something, some particular action on that application, and the application might trigger some security event that it might bring part of the network down, or maybe the entire network within the company. Okay, so this is how we view it. We're basically at the threats whenever when we talk inside or the outside threats. Okay, let's move on. Then why network security is needed? Okay, if we basically rely on that definition of a Cisco, that is any activity that is designed basically to protect the integrity of the network and the data within the computer network, then obviously the network security is very much needed. Why else? Because earlier I said that the data is something that is basically matters a lot. Okay. Because network security relates directly to an organization's business continuity. Okay, if people are managing to have unauthorized access to an organization's network, okay, think of how much damage they can cause to that particular organization. The damage is going to be huge, because unauthorized access means that it's a data loss. And the data loss is basically disrupting the continuity of the business. Okay, therefore, that particular business organization is not capable of moving forward with its way of basically conducting the business. Okay, that's why the network security is needed in order to prevent the security breaches. And security breaches can cause the loss of a business data, threaten people's privacy, so stealing the personal information, and also can compromise the integrity of the information. And when we say the integrity of the information, actually what we understand with the integrity of the information is the accuracy of the information that is residing within the database servers of a particular company. So how much true, how accurate is that particular information, okay? And then also, like, this network security is needed in order to prevent the security breaches that can result in the loss of revenue for corporations, okay? Then theft of the intellectual property. Think of it when I was basically thinking and talking about the invention within one particular company, and then if that employer basically is having unauthorized access to such information, then he simply can, because of some amount of money, he can just steal that information and then give out that information to some other company. Okay, the lawsuits, and also can even threaten the public safety. So in order to prevent all this, then this is the reason, the strong reason why the network security is needed. Okay, we're having over here the data loss. Okay, we'll be going just shortly. What is the data loss? As soon as a particular person, to whom I was referring earlier as the hacker, and we will be going shortly after this slide to the hackers. Okay, the data is what matters mostly. Okay, if someone manages to have unauthorized access to a certain computer network, obviously she is very much interested to steal the data, okay, to grab that data, okay, and then the data loss for a particular company is that it's ruining down the business. And over here we have that the brand damage and loss of reputation, the loss of competitive advantage. So the company is not, or for the time being, is not competitive on the market. Okay, loss of the customers, because obviously as soon as the customers read the report that a particular company was attacked and then the information was lost, obviously they will be reluctant to conduct any more businesses or purchase the products or whatever that particular company is providing in terms of the services and business items. Loss of revenue, definitely. You don't have customers, you will not have revenues, or you cannot generate the income. Okay, litigation and the legal action resulting in fines and civil penalties as well, and also the significant cost and effort to notify affected parties and recover from the breach or from the attack that was just recently conducted by the unauthorized people. So all this represent the data loss, and then damage is huge. Okay, just think of a corporate, and then indeed it's going to be like a million to maybe to not say billions of US dollars for that particular company. Okay, I was saying the corporate networks. Okay, who is basically attacking the network? So who is gaining unauthorized access to the networks? It can be my computer network, it can be your computer network back home. It can be within the small office, it can be within the mid-sized business, it can be within the corporate networks, interwide corporates throughout the world. So these particular people, they basically simply, they don't care what network is in front of them. All they care is just how to manage to have access to that particular network with one intention: to steal the information. Okay. In terms of the history, like from the books or literature, also the Cisco and the Cisco Networking Academy says that the hacking activity started back in 1960s. Okay, at that time, not with computers, although at that time they used to be computer networks, but mostly used to be universities connected with those IBM mainframes. Okay, but at that time it was like with phone phreaking, okay, or phreaking as it is known shortly, which is basically referring to using various audio frequencies in order to manipulate the phone systems of that particular time. Okay, why? Because in those phone conversations, it was exchanged the information, and somebody was very much interested in order to steal the information, so have some sort of unauthorized access to the information. Okay. And like that, then basically from time to time, okay, the hacking evolved and then came to 1980s when for the first time with a dial-up connection at that time, okay? So not with this always on the internet connections that we're having nowadays, but with the dial-up connections, with the dial-up modems, and then calling a access server and then gaining access to a particular computer network or maybe on the internet of that time. Then for the first time, we have the first activities of the hacking that took place back in 80s in order to gain unauthorized access and then with it steal the information. Okay, what is then the hacker in general as a general notion or definition or concept? The hacker is basically a person that is gaining unauthorized access to a computer network. Okay, so always pay attention to the unauthorized access. Okay, to this particular word. Okay, because she's not authorized to simply access that particular network or the information. And then the hacker itself is like the white hat hackers, the gray hat hackers, the black hat hackers. The most dangerous one is this guy, black hat hacker. Okay, and then we'll be simply going towards the script kiddies. We are just teenagers that are from the fun perspective, I will say, okay, because they don't have experience, simply in order to show themselves, okay, within the friendship, they want to show themselves, okay, I can hack this and that, blah blah. And then simply they're just searching for some information, hacking information on the internet, encounter some scripting, some scripts, okay, some codes on the internet, running those codes. Usually they are harming more themselves rather than doing some sort of harm. Although that there are situations that some script kiddies became very much successful in their hacking engagement, and then happened that indeed some teenagers managed to hack banks or other institutions, relevant institutions, when they then misuse that whether the information or maybe the money, if it was basically the banks. The cyber criminals are the black hat hackers. The one that I was saying is considered among the most dangerous individuals or the person, because they are self-employed and working for large cybercrime organizations. So either they are self-employed and they are very, very knowledgeable and very experienced people, okay, in terms of the hacking activity, or they might work for large cybercrime organizations in order to be engaged into those cybercrime activities. Okay, hacktivists. The word itself is basically providing the explanation. Okay, are the gray hat hackers who rally basically and protest against the different political or social ideas. Okay, maybe I have forgotten to say right at the beginning of this webinar that the best or the beauty of the technology is that indeed every definition or every word, every term is basically self-describing itself. Okay, let's move on. The types of malware. What is the malware? The malware is basically the bad code. Okay, you can think as the bad software as well. Reason for that is because when we say bad code is that, for instance, when you're running Microsoft Word, simply you're getting the word processing application through which you're basically entering text and processing the text. Malware is, if you run the malware, you will not get word processing for sure. Simply it's going to either delete your data, either convert your data, either to destroy the operating system, like destroying the master boot recorder, or doing some harm within your computer system. That's why it is called the bad code, or the malicious code, or the bad software, the ill software, the ill code. Okay, so all these words or these terms are basically aligned or around this particular definition or this wording. Okay, we start with the virus. Virus is widely known, that malicious code that is basically attached and then executed, and then it does the thing that was programmed to do. If it was programmed to delete data, it's going to delete data. For instance, like it is programmed to delete the the .doc files in your computer. It's going to delete that one. Okay, or maybe the .xls files, which is the Excel files, or maybe convert your Excel files, or maybe destroy the master boot recorder, okay, or do some other stuff, okay, in your computer. So for whatever purposes and reasons it was programmed, is going to basically do that one. Trojan horse, okay, this comes from the ancient Greek as well, okay, with the Trojan horse at that time, okay, but in fact over here we deal with the malware that is pretending to be something else, in fact is something else, okay. So the Trojan horse, for instance, I remember a few years back when a friend of mine was telling me that he simply received a picture through the email from a friend of him, and it happened that his credentials were basically stolen. Okay, so it is some malicious code or some malware attached to a particular file, okay? And then as soon as you're running that file, so if it's picture, you're running the picture in order to view the picture. If it's video, you're running the video in order to view the video. But in fact, at the background, by the time you have clicked that file, you've executed that malware, and then the malware was, its sole purpose was to steal your credentials. And it can be like your Windows credentials, it can be the credentials that you've used for that particular service. If you've received, for instance, the Trojan horse file through or malware through the email, then it's going to steal the credentials of that web email service, okay? So this is that thing regarding the Trojan horse. Then we have the worms. And the worm is another malware or malicious code. In this situation, this is very interesting thing when we compare it to the virus, is that this type of a malware is basically replicating itself, okay, by independently exploiting vulnerabilities in the network, okay. Interesting is that the worm, while the viruses attack files on a local computer, the worms are attacking network services. And if you just go and search for the worms on the internet, you will find, for instance, like the worms that have basically used to be very famous, particularly with the SQL servers a few years back. Okay, so they are attacking the network services and like slowing down the network, and with it basically creating some difficulties in terms of transmitting the data within the computer networks, and then obviously coming or pushing to that point where indeed the entire network is going to be useless then. Okay, what else are we having? Because the list is huge in terms of a malware. We have the ransomware, the spyware, the adware, the scareware, the phishing, and the rootkit. Okay, the ransomware, which is lately is basically creating that disastrous situation with the infections of the computers worldwide. It's a malware that denies the access to the infected computer system. Okay, and obviously then there are some people that are creating or programming these ransomwares, and then they're demanding some payment to be done in order to decrypt the encrypted data. Okay, the spyware is the malware that is used to gather the information about the user and send that information to another entity. It's simply that the spy, if it happens that let's say I have a spyware in my computer, is that myself is not going to know that one as well. I mean at all. On the background, the spyware is going to steal the information. The spyware is going to use my computer as a zombie, and in order to then, in an organized format, a hacker from somewhere in the world and use my computer with maybe thousands of other computers in order to attack corporate networks or services of a particular organization or network, and then with a name to deny the services. That's why you might have heard the word DOS, denial of services. Okay, then we have the adware, the malware that typically displays the annoying pop-ups on your screen. Okay, again over here is the intention of the author that has programmed this adware or generate the adware in order to generate some revenues. simply to create some money. Okay, scareware is basically another format of a malware that includes the scam software, which uses the social engineering to shock or induce the anxiety by creating the perceptions of a threat. Okay, so very interesting. It's simply like something that scares basically the users. The phishing, okay, most probably you've been also, not saying the victim, but at least you have most probably received those let's say emails when let's say that maybe you've received an email from your bank saying that you need to how can I say reset the password of your e-banking, or that you want some particular lottery, then we need all of your information in order to transfer the money and stuff like that. Simply is trying to fish me, you, and everyone in order to provide the personal information, and with it ending up like the compromise of the personal information. Then we have the rootkit, which is a malware that is installed on a compromised system. And then after it is installed on that particular compromised system, and it continues to hide its intrusion and maintain privileged access basically by the hacker. So again, we have a form of the computer that is going to be used as a zombie in order to attack other systems or other networks in a world. Okay, proceeding. We came then to the lesson 3, which is simply talking about the securing network devices. Okay, first of all, we need to find out what are the network professionals or network security professionals. Usually are people that are qualified. Okay, so within organizations nowadays, we encounter different titles or different positions of people that are working there, particularly in security. Obviously, we're basically dealing over here with the qualified people, qualified professionals, which primarily task is to ensure that the computer network within the organizations, within the corporate, is basically secure, and obviously with it, the data is being protected. Okay, usually we have the chief information officer, chief information security officer, security operations manager, chief security officer, security manager, okay, network security engineer, and others. So all these network security professionals are responsible for maintaining the data assurance for an organization, ensuring that the integrity and the confidentiality of the information within the organizations. Okay, so as you've seen from this particular figure or from this particular image, it was just basically showing the most common network security professional specialist professionals jobs that are available nowadays, and are representing basically those the people in charge for the security or securing the information and the computer networks within the organization. Moving on. Network security organizations, okay, with network security organizations, if you happen to be a network security professional, obviously you need to find out the most recent security threats, security information, security reports. And obviously the easiest way is to either subscribe yourself or in regular basis access the portal of these particular organizations that we're having in this particular image or figure, in order to maintain the status of the information, the most recent information. So you basically you're maintaining your professional approach in terms of what is actual from the standpoint of a security, or what is currently running in the world from the security perspective, particularly from the perspective of the threats, from the perspective of the attacks, the form of the attacks towards the corporate networks, organizations, networks, and stuff like that. Okay, it's something that the network security professionals are simply using frequently in their jobs, this sort of the activity, in order to update themselves with the most recent reports from the security perspective. Okay. Furthermore, in securing network devices, we will be encountering something that is very vital and very important in security, in security of a computer networks in general, in particular with the access of the information within the one particular computer network. Okay, so we're dealing with the confidentiality, integrity, and also the availability. Or this is known differently as the security triangle. Okay, when we talk about the confidentiality, then obviously we're over here. It's an activity that basically it is designed, and it is its main purpose is to keep the confidential the information. For instance, if we're talking about the information of employees within one particular computer network within the organization, and then definitely with the confidentiality, we're trying to encrypt all the information that is important, whether the employees' information or whether the other data that belongs to the partners, to the customers, okay, consumers, and everyone. And obviously, it's a way of protecting the data by encrypting the data and hiding the data from the unauthorized access. Obviously, different encryption technologies are used over here, and obviously strong encryptions as well in order to maintain that standard. Okay, then we have the integrity. Earlier in this webinar, I said that with the integrity, we should think of the activity that is designed to assess the actual accuracy, okay, of the data. Okay, so with the integrity of the data, we're assuring that in our databases of our computer networks in corporate organizations, we're not having some let's say duplicate data, some data that is not accurate, or some data that is not basically valid, okay, or that is not useful, okay. But the integrity of the data means that indeed we have the data that is very accurate and also has a lot of value, particularly in the market if we're a business. Here we do use a lot of the techniques, the technology again, in order to basically protect the integrity of the data through the different hashing algorithms. Again, we're dealing with the encryption and cryptography as well. Okay, then we have the availability. Obviously, with the availability, we need to make sure that the data is available only to the people that are authorized to access the data. So in no way we will be giving the data to the people that are not authorized. Other than that, availability. Remember when I was talking the mesh computer network? Because of the high availability, usually the interwide corporates that are located throughout the globe are creating those mesh networks in order to interconnect on data centers for the purpose of having the high availability. So we need to ensure that the data that we have in our corporate network is always available to the authorized users. Pardon. Okay. Proceeding furthermore and looking at how we secure network devices, in particular how we secure the network infrastructure. Okay. For instance, in dealing with the securing of the network infrastructure, obviously over here we're not aiming in securing one particular device, but instead we're securing all of the infrastructure. And the infrastructure means that we're having the computers, we're having servers, we're having networking devices, we're having peripheral devices, we're having basically all that the components, the computer network components that are constituted and basically creating that computer network. So with securing the network infrastructures, basically is very critical to overall the network security. Okay, we can refer to it as the more secure is the network infrastructure, then the overall network, the level of the security within the overall network of our company or our corporate network is much more secure as well. Okay, for instance, consider like a disgruntled employee casually looking over the shoulder of a network administrator while the administrator is logging into an edge router. Okay, it might have happened to you, it might happen to me as well, because it's not that people are they have ill intentions. For instance, I'm referring to the colleagues over here, but it is that sometimes it's the curiosity of the people in order to just stare at at your fingers while you're typing at your password. It is the listed among the best practices that whenever you need to write the password and you're having to be like let's say in a location within the office that is visible and people are nearby, obviously you should not be shy to tell them to turn their head in order so you can write the password. Okay, obviously this is very simple, but sometimes we're just shy, and then obviously we end up that somebody's just learned the password, the administrative password, and from that point onwards, basically the trouble then might begin to flow. Okay. Or for instance, if an attacker gains access to a router, I'm always referring to the edge router, which is the router placed in the perimeter of the network, and obviously the security and management of the entire network is basically going to be compromised, because she managed to gain access to the edge router. Then from the edge router, she is going to have to be much easier for him or for her in order then to basically manage to get inside of the corporate network. Okay, so basically that's why different techniques are used in order to ensure that the network infrastructure is being protected. For instance, like to prevent unauthorized access, as we're seeing from the image as well. Okay, we're seeing on the router, we basically see that sort of a configuration in terms of the when basically in terms of the accessing the router, and if you're not authorized to access the router, definitely that thing is then taking over and then preventing you from unauthorized access. For instance, like to prevent unauthorized access to all infrastructure devices, the appropriate security policies and controls must be implemented, like the one on the image, okay, which basically deals with the router and is primary targeting for attacks, because the device acts as a traffic police which direct traffic into, out of, and between the networks as well. Okay, let's move on in order to not keep you more. This is very interesting in terms of the securing the network devices. Over here we have like 3 scenarios. Okay, is the single router approach, is the defense in depth approach, and also like the DMZ approach. Okay, in figure 1, in a single router approach, a single router connects to the protected network. Okay, if you're seeing over here on the right side of this particular image, we have the LAN. Okay, and then obviously the router in between, and then the internet. Okay, so here the single router connects the protected network or the internal local area, the LAN, to the internet. Okay, so then all the security policies are configured on this particular device. So think of it as basically this router 1 is acting as a firewall, is acting is having access list there, is having basically firewall configurations there. So it is having all of the security policies in order to prevent the unauthorized access from the internet to reach the LAN 1. Okay, because it's the single router approach, you can think of this one as like the small office, home office scenario. Okay, and then we have the second scenario, the second figure, which is basically providing the defense in depth approach. And pay attention now to the complexity of the topology. Okay, so you have the firewall in between 2 routers, the router 1 and the router 2. Okay, and then just because of that is like defensive in depth, because it's the layered the layered security. Okay, so so basically you're having the first locked door, and then if you're managing to open that locked door, then you're going to have another door and another door. So this is like layered security, and then with it is like usually called defense in depth. In this particular approach, obviously compared to the first one, this is much more secure than the single router approach, because it is using the one that we've just said just now, that it is using the layer security. Okay, so you have the router 1, you have then the firewall, then you have the router 2. So basically, if the hacker manages to compromise the router 1, then he's going to have the hard time compromising the firewall, and then obviously he's going to have much more hard time to compromise the router 2. So at some point she is going to give up, and then obviously because it takes a lot of time, a lot of effort in order to compromise any of these devices. Okay, assuming that they have the very strong policies and the strong configurations from the standpoint of the security. And then we have the DMZ approach. The DMZ approach is basically the demilitarized zone. Okay, so what exactly do we have over here? Pay attention, it's like almost similar to the defense in depth. So from the perspective of the layer security, we do have almost the same approach. Okay, but we have something like the DMZ zone there, as you can see in the firewall. And usually in DMZ, for instance, like think of a company, okay, that has a website, and then on that website they have some e-commerce stuff. Okay, so the information that is on the website is basically dynamic. Why? Because the information actually is not residing on a web server, but it's residing on a database, and the database is behind the router too. Okay, and then DMZ, it means that the port 80 is going to be open in the router 1, also in the firewalls, and then from the internet, the traffic that hits the port 80 to the router 1, it's allowed, so it's permitted. Comes to the firewall, it's permitted. Then it reaches a DMZ, and then at the DMZ is maybe the web server, okay, which is usually is okay, and then the information. Pay attention. I've said this dynamic information, and then the information that is being accessed to that particular website, if it's e-commerce or online shopping, then that dynamic information is basically on the server inside the LAN 1. So in order for that information to be accessed, that it needs to go again through the firewall, through the router 2 policies, and then also basically to go then inside. So this is the approach of the DMZ. It's identical as defense in depth from the standpoint of the layer security, but with the exception that there's a DMZ zone in order to permit traffic of a particular port or particular activity in terms of accessing the data, which is like some sort of a public data. Okay, we're moving on. Then we have the 3 areas of a router security. Okay, so what basically we need to have into consideration. We will be going just very shortly over here. Okay, so first of all, we need to establish or implement a physical security. Okay, so whenever the networking devices are located within the server room, within a data center, within a particular office, in a location within the company, obviously only authorized people should and must have access. Okay, so first of all, the networking devices needs to be secured physically. And then we need to look at the other considerations, which is basically dealing more with the operating system and the configuration files of the router itself. Okay, why? Because the RAS, in terms of who has access to the router, obviously should be the authorized people as well. In terms of the configuration files, okay, where they are stored. Locally on the router, if we have backups of the configuration files, one of those backups are stored as well. So all that again, we need to make sure have procedures in place to ensure that only the authorized peoples are managing to have access basically within the router. And then the router hardening is that additional activities that are ensuring that from the perspective of the physical security, from the perspective of router operating systems and configuration file security, is basically to eliminate all potential abuse of unused ports and services. If for instance that if our router has a certain role, okay, then if we have assessed that indeed there are some ports that are not used, then we need to basically make sure that we're simply do not allow access, unauthorized access to those ports. If then there are other services that were configured on the router to ensure that if the router is serving a primarily one particular service, then other services should be brought down, okay, for the security purposes as well. Again, over here we need to have the procedures in place in order to ensure that from the perspective of administrative access, only the authorized peoples are basically having access to a router. Okay, moving on, we have the other topic over here in the security network devices, and then this one has to do with the secure administrative access. Okay, what is the secure administrative access? Is an extremely important security task. Okay, because it ensures that only the authorized people or users or employees are having access to the networking devices. Okay, and then there are some activities over here and guidelines and tasks that needs to be taken in order to ensure that only the authorized employees, only the authorized users are having access to the networking devices, with the particular to the router. Okay, always bear in mind and remember that as a router is because that particular router is very important, because if that particular router basically goes down, then the hacker or the people that are at the people that are attacking the computer network, they might have much easier work than to gain access to the internal network. Okay, so what the first task is to restrict the device accessibility and simply limiting the accessible ports. Okay, and then restrict the permitted the communicators and restrict the permitted methods of access is the task that is basically covering all these particular one. Okay, then a login account for all access is that recording anyone who has access to devices. So this is some sort of surveillance also to the people that are having basically a sort of the authorized access, in order to make sure that what sort of a work that they are doing every time that they are accessing the router. Okay, remember, because simply it might be an insider threat. Okay, what if that particular network administrator is working for another company and then is simply misusing his authorized access and then doing some sort of a suspicious activity? Okay, so we're simply basically logging all of the activities of the authorized people as well. Okay, authenticate the access, ensure that access is granted only to the authenticated users, groups, and also that these authenticated users or groups of the authenticated users are basically accessing only the services that they are authorized to access. And with it, we need to limit the number of failed logging attempts and then the time allowed between the logins. We've seen that image like 2-3 slides earlier. Okay, authorize the actions. With the authorize the actions, we need to restrict the actions and view the permitted by any particular user, group, or services. Then we go with the present legal notification, which is message of the day, MOD. It is known with the other words. Whoever has experience with the Cisco routers or the routers of other manufacturers as well, you're simply creating those legal notification that, for instance, if I'm not authorized to access the router, but I'm attempting to access it, obviously after a first successful, or after a certain, let's say 3 unsuccessful attempts of accessing the router, is going to display a message that obviously you're trying to access the router in unauthorized way, and then through this particular act and stuff like that, you're going to basically take an illegal action against you and stuff like that. Okay, and then ensure the confidentiality of the data, protecting the local stored and sensitive data from being viewed and copied is basically that this particular task is dealing with. Okay, so all of these tasks are aiming in basically or trying to secure the administrative access to the networking devices, particularly to the router. Okay, moving on. Then we have the secure local and the remote access. Okay, it's basically these scenarios that are presented over here, providing us the best practices on how we can provide or increase the security in the local and the remote access as well. Okay, we start with the local access figure or image. Okay, so as we can see from this particular image over here, all the network infrastructure devices can be accessed locally. Okay, so the local access to router usually requires a direct connection, and if you see that particular direct connection is basically going from the computer to the console port of a router. Okay, and then in this situation, we're basically managing this particular router directly. Okay, as it is shown in this figure, then the administrator must have physical access to the router and then use the console cable in order to connect to the console port, and then after basically establishing the connection, which is recommended to be, although it's locally, again, it's recommended to be like in secure format, usually secure shell, and then proceed then with the initial configuration of the device, or maybe some further configuration. Remote access. So how we remotely access a router in this particular example, the figure 2, remote access using the telnet, and also like remote access using the modem or the auxiliary port. Okay, basically in both situations, although I have mentioned that in local access, it is recommended to again use the secure shell for the purpose of the security. Okay, although it's locally, it's basically the best practice that is recommended is that the telnet is not secure connection. Okay, because all the username and the password is basically in a plain text transmitted from the PC to the router. In order to avoid that, it is recommended that instead of a telnet, we're simply basically using the secure shell. Okay. But both also like with the remote access using the modem and the auxiliary port, okay, which is a serial connection. Okay, so you're going with the basically from pardon, from your computer connecting basically to your router by using the phone connection, reaching the modem, and then from the modem basically you're going with the auxiliary port to the router. Okay, because over here we're simply like dealing with a remote device, on which in both situations is the remote router, and obviously we need to make basically we need to make sure that we're using the secure shell, the HTTP secure, okay, or maybe some simple network management connections to the router from the computer in order to ensure that whatever information, particularly configuration files that we're transmitting from a computer to the router, is basically not intercepted or doesn't have the possibilities to be intercepted by the unauthorized people. Okay, moving on. Proceeding basically with the secure local and the remote access. Okay, over here we have the dedicated management network. as you can see from the picture, okay, we have a local area network which is primarily designed for the management tasks, okay? So the network operation guys, okay, are sitting or are part of this local area network, and then that is solely used for the management thing. So over here, we don't have a traffic of the company. So no other user has access to this local area network. So simply the network people or the network administrators, they are part of this, and they do have authorized access to this or are part of this local area network. And then from their computers, they are accessing the devices, network devices, and then managing those devices, whether running the the initial configurations or running those complex configuration. This is basically this is like this is known to be like the most secure environment. Okay, not necessarily other companies have this sort of the approach or this sort of a scenario, but this is the best practice when it comes to basically accessing whether local or remote devices for the purpose or for the sake of configuring them. Okay, then another topic that has to do with the securing network devices is the guidelines that we should take into consideration regarding the strong passwords. Okay, just start from this consideration. Nowadays, assuming that it's not assuming, but because Windows 10 is being like widely used, or the Windows operating system for desktops in particular, obviously, if you're running Windows 10, then you're having either a local account, or you're having a Microsoft account. Or if you're running the Windows 7, then again you're having like the local account. In both situations, you're very much aware of the guidelines in terms of the password. So you're choosing a strong password for yourself. But when I say strong, is like hard to guess but easy to remember. This is one consideration, and then it has, let's say, more than 6, 8, 10, or 12 characters. Okay, it's like combination of the symbols, the letters, uppercase, lowercase, okay, and numbers as well. Okay, and then basically, it's not that you're writing your password and I mean on a piece of a paper and then print that piece of a paper under your keyboard or stuff like that. Okay, so all of these are the guidelines regarding the strong passwords, but this was from the perspective of your personal computer. Same applies to the networking devices within the organization, within the corporation, stuff like that. So there are basically some rules, and the rules that we're seeing on this slide are coming from the Cisco. It says use a password length of 10 or more characters, include a mix of uppercase and lowercase letters, numbers, symbols, and spaces, avoiding passwords based on easily identified piece of information, deliberately misspell a password, which is an example of Smith, and then obviously how it is basically being misspelled. Change passwords often. I'll stop a bit over here. Change passwords often. It's part of a security policy. Depends now that there are depends from the company. It's not what I'm saying, but at least practice is telling that there are companies that every 30 days are requiring to be changed the password on computers, on networking devices, or every 60 days, every 90 days, every 120. So it depends from the policy, from the security policy of a company. But indeed, the best practice is that the passwords needs to be changed often, and the history should basically maintain that the recent password or the last password or the password of let's say the password of the previous 3 months or the last year is not being used. Okay, and then obviously do not write the passwords down and leave them in obvious places. The one I was saying for the personal computers under the keyboard. Okay, moving further. Then we came to the lesson 4, and then this one has to do with monitoring and managing the networking devices. Okay, over here, it's not that we're not dealing with the security. No, not at all. Instead, we're dealing with the security, but obviously we're trying to protect something that is very much important for the networking devices. And because networking devices, so far, whatever we have named in this particular presentation, we've seen that we're dealing with the physical components, but obviously all those networking devices, they do have some sort of the operating system. Okay, and then we are very much interested to ensure that the operating system is basically safe and secure from the perspective of let's say the backups and everything related to it. Okay, so we have the Cisco IS resilient configuration feature. Okay, what it does basically is that this feature allows for faster recovery if someone maliciously or unintentionally reformats the flash memory or erases the startup configuration file in the NVROM, which is like standing for non-volatile random access memory. Okay, so the feature maintains a secure working copy of the router IIS image file and a copy of the running configuration file. Then all these secure files cannot be then removed by the user and are then referred to as the primary boot set. So this is basically how the Cisco is using this particular approach to this particular feature in order to ensure that the fast recovery that happened after one particular activity, whether intentionally or organized. Okay, then we're having namely the IIS image resilience feature. It's simply over here we're going through the configuration. Okay, as you can see, we're using a certain commands over here. Particularly, we're using the secure boot image in the global configuration mode. Okay, and then in order to ensure that indeed we're basically recovering the IIS in a fast possible way. Okay, I will not go any further because we're very late. Okay, the primary boot set image is another. This is basically another another configuration activity or another way of simply basically recovering a router or the switch. Okay, it has a certain steps. And then, like steps are that the first step, I'm going to go over it very fast. On step number one, you need to reload the router using the reload command. As you can see, the first is basically on that, on this particular figure. Okay. Then from the RAM mode, so the RAM from the RAM monitoring mode, you need to enter the dir command. Okay, as you can see, it's basically after the user has entered the RAM monitoring mode, she is running the dir flash 0 column command. Okay, pardon. Then step number 3 is that we need to boot the router. Okay, booting the router with the secure boot set image using the boot command. Okay, and then you can see the RAM monitoring 2. You can see the boot flash 0 column, and then obviously the version of the IIS that is being basically using reloaded. And then step 4, enter the global configuration mode and then restore the secure configuration to a file name of your choice using the secure boot configuration. You can see the router after once it was basically booted, then obviously we're running the secure boot configuration to restore flash 0 column rescue dash configuration. Okay, then step number 5 is we need to exit the global configuration mode and issue the copy command in order to copy the rescued configuration file to the running configuration. And this is the process of recovering that particular server, the one that we've already said that whether intentionally or unintentionally by mistake, it was basically brought down. Okay, configuring secure copy is another configuration activity. Okay, that lists the steps over here in this particular slide. Okay. Then obviously the Cisco IIS resilient feature provides a method for securing the IIS image and the configuration files locally on the device. Okay, but then we need to use the secure copy protocol, the SCP shortly feature, in order to remotely copy these files. With the SCP, basically what it does, the SCP, the secure copy protocol of the SCP is providing a secure and authenticated method for copying router configuration or the router images, the image files, to a remote location. And basically, if we look at the steps, and we see that first of all we need to configure the secure shell, meaning that remotely now we need to connect with the device, and then obviously we need to basically run the configure the secure shell if it's not already configured. Then for local authentication, configure at least one user with privilege level 15. Okay, then we need to enable the AAA with the command of a format like AAA space new dash model global configuration mode command. Then in step number 4, we need to use the again AAA then space authentication space login space default space local command in order to specify that the local database is being used for the authentication. And then at the step number 5, we're using or running some other command with AAA space authentication space exact space default space local command in order to configure the command authorization. Okay, and then at step number 6, okay, we're enabling the secure copy server-side functionality with the command the IP space SCP space server space enable command. Okay, so all these steps basically are giving us a clear picture of how we configure the secure copy in order to ensure that indeed we're we're basically having this method of storing in and accessing the images in a secure format. Okay, proceeding furthermore. Okay, we've reached the end of this particular webinar. Prior to going through what we went through, myself is apologizing for the time that we've spent. But indeed, I personally admit that I'm not managing quite well the time, even either as a Cisco Certified Academy instructor or as a Microsoft Certified Trainer. Since I myself is enjoying a lot of instructing the work, I simply enjoy the time and then do not pay a lot of the attention in terms of how much the time was running. Okay, so indeed, myself is pardoning to all of you, because you might have had some important tasks to do, and then you've assumed that the webinar is going to be only 1 hour because that's the way it was meant to be. So I apologize, but I hope that indeed you've learned or you have simply updated your information regarding to your current knowledge about the networks, in particular about the network components, network security, securing the network devices, and also like monitoring and managing a secure network with the highlight in router particularly. Okay, and then that's all, folks. Okay, a very famous cartoon. Erisham, pardon for being late.
No problem. So we still have a very healthy number of people with us. Thank you all for staying with us. We understand that the session went over its designated time, as Bekim has also discussed. But the good thing is we've learned about this. We got to the security part, and we learned about how to secure Cisco routers and switches. Obviously, there's some demo aspects to this as well, which we will hopefully cover in a different session with Bekim very soon. And until then, take care, guys. And thank you, Bekim. Thank you a lot for a very educational session. and we'll have you.
Thank you to you, Etisham. Thank you to Quickstart for giving me this opportunity. Once again, I apologize, and I would like to thank all the participants. And yes, indeed, God willing, we'll be having a session only with the demo. So we'll be going to the majority of this.
Exactly.
So initial configuration, routers and switches, and security stuff as well.
Okay, guys. Thank you very much for joining us today. Thank you very much. Bye.